The president of Liberia once said, "If you educate a man, you educate a family and a village. To educate a woman, you empower a nation." So in 2009 we started. It was myself, Don, and Jason, video camera, a bumpy taxi ride, and 30 girls in an outdoor classroom in Gambia where we started the Literacy and Empowerment Program. Then we tried again in 2011, and we worked with another school with a partnership there. It grew to about 40 girls at that point. But in 2013 was really the birth of the work that we're deep ingrained in right now, which included the year-long mentor program for girls and also taking those girls on the travel seminar, stopping in Morocco, and then we went to the Gambia to do a week-long conference with young women there, and we had partnered with schools as well on the ground. And now we come back up to, 2016. We went to Amsterdam, the Netherlands, took another group of girls. It was a group of 10. And then we also went to Tanzania and partnered with an orphanage, did a multiple-day conference where our girls went to school with the Tanzanian girls in the morning, and we had our conference in the afternoon. We lived alongside them for the week that we were visiting there. And now here we are in 2018 on the eve of a decade of Women Empowering Nations, working with 60 young women from 3 different schools in Ghana. We've brought over girls from the United States. And we've also ramped up the amount of mentors who are coming. It's an experience not just for young girls, but also for young adult women who want to be a part of this path to change alongside us. So we call these experiences a travel seminar because it is much more than just a trip. We take our young women and want for them to be immersed in the culture, being able to have tangible experiences of not only building relationships beyond borders, but also digging into the history, learning more about themselves, their ancestors, and connecting with learning opportunities that transform their view of the world around them.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Carlesha Williams-Bradley, founder and executive director of Women Empowering Nations. It is such an honor to have this day with each and every one of you. We have young women and older women joining us from all across the world. We received registration from the United States, from Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Tanzania, Gambia, France, literally all over the United States. I'm leaving off some countries, but I know that you all have put that information in the chat. If you have not already, list your name. Tell us where you're coming from. We're just so grateful that you're here. Today, we are celebrating Black women. We are celebrating Black women in leadership, our plight, our journey, our wellness, our social justice initiatives, and our self-care. Women Empowering Nations was founded in 2009. This is our 11th year of working to seek to lead and give leadership opportunities for women of color to be the change in their own communities. This organization was founded with a hope and dream for me personally of seeing something that I did not have growing up. I grew up in a predominantly white environment and always yearned for mirrors to my potential. All throughout my grade school experience, I never had a teacher who looked like me, and really saw this opportunity with Women Empowering Nations to be the change I wanted to see, to begin to mentor and to speak life into young women, to create opportunities for exposure, to expand expectations, and to see more of the world around them, but also to be on a journey to grow an organization and place Black women in the position to not be an exception to the rule in leadership, but to be common and known and there, and that our voices matter, that our perspectives are elevated, and that our experience is gleaned to move our nation forward. So again, you all, we are in for a packed, special day. We have so many women who are coming to pour into each and every one of us today. I know that many of them are my sheroes. I'm elated to get to these sessions. This event would not be possible without a team of people behind the scenes. I know today you're going to see me, you're going to hear from me, but there were several who came together to make this possible, and I just want to thank them. Dawn Brown is one of our founding board members. She's been on this journey with me from the very beginning. She was a part of this team. Mercedes Harris, Belen Samuels, Ashley Small, Jason Lemon, Jasmine Toby, all of them made this possible today, and I want to say thank you. For today, we have two panels for you. One of them is called Breathing While Black, Social Justice and Self-Care. The other is Standing on Their Shoulders, Celebrating Black Women Who Lead. In addition to these panels, we have a phenomenal keynote, which is coming up here pretty soon. And today, we're also doing some giveaways. So a lot of you applied for scholarships from Women Empowering Nations online. We've got hundreds of applications from all over the world, all over the United States. And we'll be giving those away at the end of our session today. So stay tuned for that. You'll also be seeing some clips to learn more about Women Empowering Nations, learn more about the growth that we serve, the impact of this work, and really learning today tangible ways for you to plug in and be the change in your own communities. What I want for you, if I was to say the one thing that I want for you from coming here and joining us today, because we know that you being here is not an accident, it's on purpose. I want for you to walk away with action items. What are you willing to commit to do? What are you willing to step out on faith and make a move on as a result of what you hear today? So you're going to need a couple of things for you to be able to do that. One of those is something to take notes with. If you're on your phone, get a notepad. If you're watching this on your computer, you can type the notes on your phone. But you don't want to miss the learning opportunities that you have to lean in and hear from experts in their industries and women who want to see you grow. The second thing that you want on this journey, if you have not already, if you have a friend and accountability partner in your life, go ahead and send them the link to this video conference today and have them join you. Even though we're starting conversations here, we want those conversations to keep going. So as we're going throughout the day, please do not hesitate to use the chat box. Lift up your questions, things that you agree with, ideas that you have. We are so excited to engage with you. And I'm honored to bring up my co-host for today, Ashley Small. She is the founder and CEO of Medley Inc., an award-winning PR and digital firm in Houston and LA. And she's a board member of Women Empowering Nations and has been a part of this dream team putting this event together. She's going to introduce our keynote speaker, so let's welcome Ashley.
Thank you, Carlesha. I'm so excited to be here today, and I'm so excited to introduce Dr. Shayan Adigun. She is a ray of light. In any room she enters, she brings positivity and illuminates hope and positivity. Okay, so I will get into it. Dr. Shayan is a chiropractor and biomechanist who focuses on injury prevention and rehabilitation while bringing an extremely unique blend to sports medicine. During her fifth season as an assistant track and field coach at the University of Houston, Dr. Shayan sought out to understand more about the inner workings of the human body. She resigned from coaching full-time and 3.5 years later simultaneously completed her second bachelor's, second master's, and doctoral degree. Dr. Shayan's impressive academic achievements came alongside an equally impressive athletic career. Her ambitions to help revolutionize sports medicine were driven by many of her personal experiences as an athlete. As a first-generation Nigerian-American, Dr. Shayan completed her All-American NCAA career and went on to become a 3-time Nigerian national champion and 2-time African champion in the 100-meter hurdles. She competed in the 2012 Summer Olympics and resurfaced 3 years later as a winter athlete in the sports of bobsled. Dr. Shayan started the first ever African bobsled team, which led the first winter federation of any sport to represent Nigeria in the 2018 Olympics. In 2018, the International Olympic Committee recognized Dr. Shayan as the first African to compete in both the Summer and Winter Olympic Games. Again, I'm so honored to introduce my friend, someone I greatly admire and who will motivate you all in meaningful ways. Welcome, Dr. Shayan.
Hello and good morning to all of you incredible women from all over the world. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to the amazing team at Women Empowering Nations for creating a platform where we can celebrate the beauty of femininity. For many years, the world has undervalued the power of Black women, and today we take our pedestals as leaders all over the world. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, we harness the tools to lead. It is embodied in our innate existence. We were literally designed as the roadmap to healthy human life in so many ways. There comes a time when we ourselves realize this and start to own our value. So when we walk proudly in that space and trust in our own abilities, the natural born leader in us starts to manifest. As a young Black girl growing up, I often took for granted how special I was. I was so caught up in understanding people and what they liked, making sure that everyone was happy, learning what everyone else needed to see, figuring out what other people labeled as success. Then somewhere down the line, I realized it was important, but I was living as a reflection of what everyone else wanted to see and not what I truly believed to be me. So I started to repurpose that time that I spent on others and focused on me. First, I asked myself one question: what makes you happy? And I spent years unraveling the answers to that question as I grew. Sometimes we feel like that should be an easy question to answer. And often what makes us happy in one chapter of our lives is no longer relevant in another. So I decided in that moment that I was going to be patient with me. And in that patience, I was going to be intentional about owning who I am as a Nigerian American, as a Muslim, and as a woman. I wasn't going to hide behind the labels that were relevant in a moment. I was going to own all of them all the time. And then something special started to happen. I started to build my confidence as a woman. And in that confidence, the natural leader in me started to rise. I made up in my mind that I was going to walk through the doors of opportunity. And if there was no door, I was going to create one. And that's what leaders do. We don't wait for our opportunities. We create them. And we stand for what we believe in confidently. And when we do that, we enable others to follow and create their own confidence in their purpose. As leaders, we teach other people how to be leaders. That's why it's important to know exactly who you are. Take ownership of that. You are special in your own way, but it takes for you to recognize it before it really starts to manifest. Represent all of who you are. You don't have to choose which part matters the most. It all matters. Therefore, every element of you matters. Being a Black girl, no matter where you are in the world, it matters. And it's powerful. You embody strength. You embody resilience. We are such strong creatures, but our compassion and understanding gives us a tendency to hide behind the layers of who we are to protect ourselves. You don't need to do that. No need to diminish who you are as a gift to this earth. No need to minimize your light to fit into a capsule that cannot accommodate you. Be big, be bold, be bright, be amazing. Let your greatness overflow and be unapologetic about claiming your glory and your shortcomings, because that is very important. We as humans are not perfect. However, we as women are pretty dang close. So people often mention that behind every strong man is a strong woman. Let's take some time to break that down. Who's the actual leader in this scenario? Exactly. Nothing in this world moves successfully or is done without the influence and leadership of a woman. There also comes a time where those around us realize our leadership qualities, and then they start to surrender to our strengths. It's no longer a tug of war between you needing to prove that you have everything it takes to rule and to run and to lead. So often we're overlooked and denied, especially as Black women. But when we believe in what we are and what we are capable of doing, there's no longer any barriers to success. So we know, we women, we're real life superheroes. But how do we truly unlock our powers? Well, I'll tell you how I do it. I trust myself and I believe in myself, even when I'm not supposed to. When I ask myself, what is it that's there? When I see a task ahead of me, I don't think about whether a man has done it or if he can do it better or than me or if I can do it better. I just think about how I can do it to the best of my ability. The beautiful Dolly Parton once said, if you don't like the road you're walking, start paving another one. That is what leaders do. So I'll leave you with these final thoughts. The best way to truly connect with people is through authenticity. There's so much beauty in who we have been created to be as women, as Black women. Not just in our physical features, but in our minds, our hearts, our spirits. We are naturally tasked with implementing the moral code and uplifting and upholding discipline in our day-to-day lives, in our families' lives, in the lives of society. We wear and we are truly the intimate backbone in which life grows. We have the strength of 1,000 men, and we all know it. You know, sometimes we tell our male counterparts this, but most times we just show them. We own it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But so often we get trapped behind our strengths and forget that there's an equal amount of power in our natural emotions. We are often convinced that harnessing these expressions somehow makes us weak or unstable, but that is very far from true. It makes us authentic. It makes us real. And when applied appropriately, it changes the world. And that's what we do. Congratulations to all the recipients of scholarships coming along at the end of this program, and cheers to being a woman.
Yes, so beautiful, such a timely message. I mean, honestly, you were speaking to me even right now at 35 years old, especially when you started to talk about authenticity in this journey that we're on as Black women and celebrating ourselves and honoring our stories along the way. But when you said we don't wait for opportunities, we create them. And that's what we're doing right here, right now, today. I mean, creating spaces for Black girls and women to grow and to lean in and to lead. And just thank you. Thank you for pouring into me this morning and our audience.
Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing, and I wish you all the absolute best in this platform.
Thank you. So, guys, now we're about to get ready to go into our second panel, or our first panel for today. I'm sorry. We have a phenomenal group of women who are joining us, and I'm honored to actually get to moderate this session. So I will begin by introducing the women that we have coming up next. Debbie Brown is a wellness educator and founder of Karma Bliss. After over a decade of working in entertainment as a radio and television host, Debbie answered her call to become an advocate for women of color in wellness. Debbie's company, Karma Bliss, is devoted to spiritual connection, meant to aid in the healing of generational trauma. Through her best-selling book, Crystal Bliss, her signature self-care challenges, and her podcast, Dropping Gems, Debbie's work is rooted in sharing tangible healing modalities with millennial and Generation Z women of color in support of emotional growth and radical self-love. We also have Soledad O'Brien. She is the CEO of Soledad O'Brien Productions. She's an award-winning journalist, speaker, author, and philanthropist who anchors and produces the Hertz television political magazine program, Matter of Fact with Soledad O'Brien. She has appeared on networks, Fox and Oxygen, and anchored and reported for NBC, MSNBC, and CNN. Newsweek magazine named her as one of the 15 people who make America great. With her husband, she is the founder of the powerful foundation that helps young women get to and through college. Our last panelist is Dr. Tiffany Fretcher. She is the founder of the Terrence Fretcher Foundation. Dr. Fretcher is a native of Tulsa, Oklahoma, my hometown as well. And she was recently thrust into the national spotlight following the death of her twin brother, Terrence Fretcher, who was shot by a police officer in Tulsa, Oklahoma, while holding his hands in the air. The murder of her brother compelled Tiffany to speak out against police brutality, particularly the killing of unarmed Black men. She has chosen to turn her personal tragedy into an opportunity to bridge fear, mistrust, and to help transform the justice system that has long perpetuated injustice. I'm welcoming our panelists to discuss today Breathing While Black, Social Justice and Self-Care. We're thinking about this journey and the movement that we're in right now, which is an intergenerational movement for social justice against police brutality and racism. And as we're leading and advocating for a better society, we want to talk today about how do we care for ourselves holistically and our community. So I am excited to kick off this session, and I'm actually going to start with a question for Devi as we're thinking about self-care. You know, you mentioned that you are committed to healing generational trauma through radical self-care. Tell us a bit about radical self-care and what are some tips that you have for how Black girls and women can create a space to heal and care for themselves in the midst of this movement for change?
Such an amazing question, and thank you so much for having me. I feel so grateful to be here. You know, for Black women in America, since the inception of us in this country, we have always been pushed into spiritual bypass and pushed into forced resilience. In every moment, we've been denied the ability to feel and specifically to connect with ourselves because it's always been about a mission of moving forward. You just got to keep going. You know, so often Black women are the anchors of their households. They're also earning out in the world. And so when they experience tragedy or when they experience the complexities of generational trauma, there are very few opportunities to actually process and transcend it. And so a lot of the work that I do is centered around joy, giving women access to more joy, giving women access to opportunities to start untangling the web, the psychological web that generational trauma is. When we talk about generational trauma, you know, the basis of it, it's specifically called intergenerational trauma. It's that passing down genetically and emotionally all of the traumatic experience that all of our ancestors have had, all of the unhealed parts of our grandparents and our parents that now settle on us, you know, and we have the opportunity to clear that trauma for the future generations that come from us. And then when we think about intergenerational trauma, we have to also consider complex post-traumatic stress, which is something all of us as people of color in America walk around with. And what that means is it's a renewed daily pain. It's something that is always sitting on top of whatever other things we have going on, whatever other parts of us that we need healing of. So I found that some of the best remedies for that for us is really to, one, be aware of it, know what we're up against. So many times we've carried around shame because we don't know why we just can't seem to be happy. We don't know why when we're looking in conjunction, specifically in the wellness world, at non-Black people, why does it seem like they heal so much easier? Why does one yoga class unlock all of this joy in them and we are still saddled sometimes with so much confusion, so much frustration, so much pain? And so one, it's self-awareness, really recognizing what are the other factors that have been at play in our lives that have led us to this point. And two, really carving out time for ourselves. That's something that has been denied to us so often. And I mean specifically really diligently, deliberately crafting a care plan for yourself. Not just how it looks on the commercials like, oh, girl, take a bath. Oh, girl, go shopping, right? I'm talking about really sitting with yourself, learning tools like meditation, learning tools like journaling, you know, finding tiny moments of joy to see yourself in, to see source or whatever your higher power is, and doing things that replenish you. You know, we often hear that we can't help other people until we refill ourselves. We have to pour into our own cup first. That's not just the same. That's what will not just keep you alive, but give you purpose in your life and give you access to the fullness of who you are. So radical self-care, radical self-love really comes from getting to know yourself on such a deep level, investing in yourself, really finding out what makes you happy, what makes you feel supported, how can you express yourself, how can you share your feelings in real time so you can process them and dissolve them.
So many powerful points. You're dropping gems like your podcast over there. Love what you're saying here and thinking about this space of filling our own cup, taking instances in our life and transferring into what makes us whole. I think about Dr. Fretcher and your traumatic experience of losing your brother and how, even the tagline of your foundation, it's God works incredible good out of unspeakable tragedy. What motivated you to turn such a traumatic experience into a movement for social change? I watch you here in Tulsa literally leading a movement in our city, constantly pouring back into others. I also want to know how you pour back into yourself, because I do see you pour into others a lot. But what allowed for you to take that experience and move towards social change?
Well, first, Carlesha, thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. I'm honored to be on this platform with Soledad and Devi. I'm a student of this. I think I need to be in the audience learning about self-care, so I have to be honest and transparent. I don't do a good job. The compounded trauma is real, and we have to reflect back to the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. My family's trauma has permeated through the generational lines. My great-grandmother had to flee in fear of her life, flee from racial terror violence. And of course, it hit my family yet again when my twin was killed in 2016, fleeing for his life, beckoning humanity, hands in the air, helicopters looming. And so I can't help but wonder every time I lay down, what was my great-grandmother feeling? What was Terrence feeling? And then now his 8-year-old son, who is terrified of the police. Every time we get pulled over, every time he sees a police officer, he goes into a panic attack or he feels he's going to be shot. And so the trauma is real. And so my why are my children, my nieces, my nephews who lost their dad to this type of violence. And so the reason why I do this is because I want to make sure that they don't have the same fate as their dad. And so I had to figure out a way through my pain, through the tears. I had to figure out a way to turn my pain into purpose, my anger, because I am angry, into advocacy, and my fear into faith. And so I stand on those principles, and I realize that this is an issue. We're in a state of emergency, and someone has to do it. Terrence's last words to me, Carlesha, was that God is going to get the glory out of my life. We celebrated our 40th birthday. He was overcoming adversity, overcoming struggles, intentionally bettering his life through education. And 30 days later, he was dead. And so after the acquittal of Betty Shelby, I had to react. I had to make a statement to the nation and to the world. And I couldn't help but remember Terrence's last words. And so I made it my duty to fulfill his prophecy. And I believe that everything that we've done in Tulsa, Oklahoma, even just this past weekend, a situation where Donald Trump came Juneteenth weekend, on the sacred grounds of the Tulsa massacre, we had to figure out what that would look like. And so we turned that situation that looked so grim, that could have turned into another Charlottesville, into a beautiful situation. We created space for people to channel that anger, that anxiety, that fear. And we cried out for justice, for freedom, and so we silenced hate in a major way. And to see Donald Trump get back, off of that plane in defeat was really huge. And so love has always been the answer for me. Everything I do is rooted in love and peace. But at the same time, we're demanding, because we know that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has. It never will. And, I just have to do it. I have to fulfill Terrence's prophecy and always revert back to the reason why. And those are Terrence's 4 children.
Thank you so much. Even listening to your story and elevating the story and the experiences over and over again and aligning this purpose through the pain. I think about Soledad, your work, and you are really legendary at elevating Black voices and stories, and have dedicated your media production company to empowering authentic stories on a range of social issues. Why is it important for Black women to elevate our voices and tell our own stories?
Mostly because no one else is going to do it for you, right? I mean, is probably the short answer. And again, it's such an honor to be on this panel and to see you guys and take part in this. But really, I think we've all sort of learned. I know when I was younger, I thought that if you just worked hard, put your head down, right, things would come to you. And you pretty quickly realize, like, it just doesn't work like that, that things that you want to achieve, you're going to have to do yourself. And I think sometimes if you allow people to tell your story, you might not even recognize yourself in that story when it comes out, right? So you have to really make sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunity. So I guess for me, what I've tried to do is I frame it as taking responsibility, right? Like, if I want to be mentally healthy, and I'm not talking about clinical depression, I'm talking about feeling like you're slogging through the mud, then I have to cut those people out who I know suck me under. I have to eat better. I have to get some sleep. I have to stop watching crazy TV shows. That like at some point you have to go, I go back to myself and say, Soledad, you know better. You know you're terrible if you get 5 hours of sleep. You know you're not strong and you don't have a good voice if you're dealing with people who suck you under. You know when you work with certain people, they make you miserable. So stop. And I think for me, a lot of how I've thought about how to move forward and elevate my voice is to kind of just cull out those things that I know aren't good for me. Because if you wait for other people to help you with it, they really won't. So for me, it's all about, you have to step up and leverage your voice. No one else is going to do it. One of the things, I covered Hurricane Katrina, and I think one of the big messages from Katrina, and actually, more recently in Puerto Rico post Hurricane Maria, right, was no one's coming to get you. This is where we are in America right now. And I wish I could claim the opposite, because it kind of breaks my heart to say that. But when you recognize that no one's coming to get you, then you need to find your community and say, listen, no one's coming to get us. So what resources do we have? What ways can we tell our story? Who do we elevate? And how do we spend our money? And how do we, support those people who are doing a good job and make sure other people know about them? But if you wait for someone to, out of the goodness of their heart to lean over and tap you to make the magic happen for you, it's just not going to happen. I wish I could lie and tell you, oh yeah, but it's just not going to happen. And it took me a long time to figure that out.
Thank you for sharing. Wow. And girls, I want for you all to put your questions in the chat, because I will be asking some of your questions as well. So I want to plug that in there. As I think about, the space that we're in right now, and especially with young women in the age of digital media and constantly being inundated with images of Black lives being murdered at the hands of police and the trauma that this can cause for our young ladies, and even thinking about it as an older woman, constantly seeing images over and over again, wanting to act, but also wanting to care for self in the same time. How have you managed this space of advocacy while also knowing when to step away and care for yourself, and finding your space in this movement while also adhering to your own well-being? And this question's for any of you who want to jump in.
Maybe I'll start, and then I'll hand it off to those who I think are so much wiser than I am on all of this. As a journalist, I think those videos are important, and they're horrible. And I will retweet them and tell people this is a terrible one, and you might not be able to look at it. But I do think there is something important about a public record, right? That people's lives don't go unrecognized, and that the terrible thing that happened doesn't go unnoted just because we were all too freaked out and turned away, right? Because what happens is if you turn away, then it just disappears into the ether and no one knows about it. And I just don't think I can be part of that. And so that's sort of my philosophy as a reporter. And I often will say, I can't even look at this one today, but this is a story of X, and I think it's important. But I think part of that self-care, right, is recognizing the days that you can't. And I think one of the best things that we can do for ourselves is to understand ourselves. I say this to students all the time. If you're a morning person, right, then get your work done in the morning. If you're a night person, then figure out how to do, right, learn how you work. Then that will make you the most powerful. You'll get the most out of the good parts of your day. And if you know, at 11 p.m. I am done. And when I used to report on an 11 p.m. show, that was a disaster. I'm in bed by 11 p.m. So really, it's to get to know yourself. And so I think it's understanding those little red flags that say, oh no, not today. See, I can't do it today. But I think that my advocacy needs to do this. But now I'm going to do this over here, and then I've got to go back to bed, or I've got to go and read a book, or I've got to go and take a hot shower and log off of social media altogether, because you know yourself. And it's hard to get to know yourself. But I think that's a really worthy thing to try to figure out.
Thank you. Anyone else want to chime in there? I think your microphone is on mute.
I'm sorry. I'll say this. Surrounding yourself with people and friends and accountability partners is extremely important. My friends know me. They know I will run myself into the ground. And so when I take on these big issues or events, they fly in like superheroes, and they surround me, and they're shoving water down my throat, and they're making sure that I eat whatever it is that I need. So you have to have that support system, whoever it is, whatever it is. But also, I think Debbie mentioned it earlier, time blocking. My best time is 4:30 a.m., 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's my time. Yeah. Whether it's 30 minutes, but when my day gets going, I'm running. And so carve out that time, whatever time it is for you, but that's the time I feed my mind, because I know that my thoughts alone are just too toxic to navigate this world and those streets. And so I have to commit my thoughts to a higher power, to a daily devotion. Even if it's just listening to inspirational video, I do that at least 30 minutes a day to build my mental toughness and to build my mental muscle. And I think that's extremely important. So blocking out time. The rest of the day, I don't do so well. I'm still trying to figure that out, but make sure you do some time blocking.
Yeah. I'm so in alignment with all of the amazing advice both of you guys just shared. I think, it's really important also to know that as human beings, we were not built to process at this high of a speed, at this level of impact. So if you are feeling unsettled by the things that you see, I just want to extend for all of the young women watching, it's normal, because we weren't built for this. This time that we're experiencing, this level of trauma that we're experiencing, it's not natural, and it doesn't align biologically with how our minds and our hearts and our bodies process. So because of that, and because we're also very much in the world at this incredibly important opportunity for radical shifts and change in our collective consciousness, it's important that we add in all the healing layers we can. So for me, a couple days ago, I saw the video of the beautiful young man, Elijah, in Colorado. It gutted me. It gutted me in a way that I can't even fully reckon with yet. And in that moment, I said, I'm done with videos. I personally know what my limitation is. And I also know that I'm very clear on the injustice happening. I'm very clear on how awful and brutal these experiences are. So I think these videos are really best served for the people that are unaware of this, or the people that want to deny these experiences or act like they don't exist. I'm in a place right now where I can no longer take on that added trauma and suffering to my day-to-day life. But I think it's incredibly important that these videos are seen, but they need to be seen by the people that don't understand this experience. So I think there's opportunity for us to be very educated and versed on what's going on and what we're seeing, but also not adding to our trauma, because we've all lived this to some extent, whether it was us directly or through our friendships or our family relationships. So we don't have to continue that process of pain and suffering in our personal lives. I think it's also important that we arm ourselves. And like you both were sharing, it's like knowing yourself, knowing what your limitations are, knowing what feels really good to you, knowing how to best invest in your own spirit and in your own mental health and whatever that means. And so just a small glimpse for me, that means every day I know I have to start my day with meditation, with prayer, with stretching my body, with doing affirmations, and with doing small rituals that I know nourish me so that I can be in this world right now, which is incredibly difficult in a very layered and complex way. We're being hit from all sides, outside of even just, you know, all of the social activism that's happening and all of the spotlight being put on some of the oppressive actions that have always happened in this country. We also are in a global pandemic. You know, we're also processing so many deeper conversations at such an accelerated pace. So knowing yourself, taking time to get to know what feels good, and then doing more of that, however that looks for you. But I identify that as building a daily practice of some sort that feels nourishing to who you are, to support you in this really difficult world right now.
Can I add one more thing? And I agree completely with what everybody has said, but it took me a long time to realize that no is a complete sentence, right? And many things have been written about I'm 53, but every woman from about 30 on, we start having these conversations about, I can't say no, I take on too much. And I feel like for your young women, learn now to say no, right? It is okay to say, I don't have a bandwidth for that. Oh, thank you so much for asking, but I really can't. It's fine. And I think it's such a struggle for me, and it was for such a long time. And at some point you finally get to like, I'm cool with no. Turn down the stuff that you don't have the bandwidth for. Just say no. And not even, no, let me explain why. Just, oh, that sounds amazing. I can't. You'll survive.
I will just jump in and say this, Soledad. I have trouble saying no, but here's my new no. So if someone says, can you do this? All I say is that I would love to, but can't right now. Sounds so good. It's an easy letdown.
Right? It's
I would
finding
love
words
to,
that work. Mm-hmm.
but can't right now. And then I smile, and it's liberating. It really, really is.
I'll tell you a funny story. When I was pregnant with my twins, I went into preterm labor, and I had to go on bed rest. And I had promised to shoot a PSA, a public service announcement, for actually an organization that deals with babies, premature babies. And when I called them and said, oh my, I'm in the hospital, I'm going to have to cancel the shoot for the PSA. And the person on the other end literally yelled at me, you're letting us down. And I realized at that moment, one, obviously she's stressed, but you know, that she would live, right? They would go and find the next person to take it over. And that I was just next up in line and just letting her down at that moment. And at that moment, I became like, I'm okay with just telling people, if you're the kind of person who's yelling at a pregnant lady who's in the hospital, like, you have lost the plot completely. And it made me realize, you know, just tell people and don't leave it open for a comeback or this or that. It is just not possible right now. Thank you for asking me. And it's okay. And practice makes perfect, I think. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Very true. You said something about how women, once they hit their 30s, they start to hit the stride of wanting to try out the no. Girls, let's start now. Let's start young. Protect your boundaries, protect your peace, protect your space. The questions from the young ladies are rolling in. So I'm going to switch our gears a little bit to make sure that I get as many of their questions as I can. One question that they have for the group is, you know, do you each personally think that the movement is going to work this time and reform will come, or is it going to take something more drastic? So referring to the Black Lives Matter movement and the efforts in the United States protesting against police brutality, do you feel that it's going to work this time and reform will come, or will it take something more drastic?
It's a slow slog, right? I mean, Black Lives Matter started in 2011. And at the time, I always find it almost like sad / bizarre / kind of awkwardly funny. The statement is Black Lives Matter, right? It's not black people are going to take over America, or arm every black person so that they can run the world. It's literally Black Lives Matter. And it sends people into a tizzy. And yet I think what's happened since 2011 is that people have begun to understand what that statement means, right? And so it just takes time. It just takes time. I think we're better positioned than ever before to have these conversations. But I don't think it's going to be, listen, a couple more Fridays, we're going to get to that, it'll all be solved. These things have to be fought for. I think it was Tiffany who said, right, like these things are never conceded. There's a lot of financial investment and business investment in keeping things to a status quo. And so you know, people aren't just saying, like, oh my goodness, we just didn't know. You're really, to make real change, to make real structural change, you're undermining a lot of systems. That's big. So I think we're seeing more interest than ever before. It's the first time I've really felt that many corporations actually, partly because they're black employees inside the system, are saying, no more, we're done. I think you're seeing little signs that it's different, but it's not going to be fast, and it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be chipping away at the big piece of marble day after day after day. I think people really lose. And I think we've experienced this when they say, oh, women's opportunities in terms of contraception, that's solved. Oh, women's opportunities in terms of leadership, we all believe in that. Oh, racism's dead. We have a black president. Clearly, you know, people, I think, generally speaking, got a little lazy about thinking like it's all good. And it's not. And these things have to be consistently fought for. So yes, better. I think possibly a big game changer, but not fast. No.
And I would just add to that, you're absolutely spot on, Soledad. This Black Lives Matter movement is not a 2-week trend. You know, we tend to be reactive. And when the cameras go away, we go away, and then there's another one and another one. And I had to realize that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, because I wanted justice and I wanted it like now. And it just didn't happen that way. And we're 4 years into this thing, still pending a civil litigation that's going to be ugly, still fighting for just simple common sense reform, policy changes. Nothing has changed since my twin brother was killed. Nothing. And we've been up at City Hall every single week fighting for these simple things. And so it's definitely a marathon. But I do believe that with the back-to-back killings of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, that attitudes are shifting and changing, because with Trayvon and Mike Brown, people felt that those were isolated incidences. We know that's not the case, but now the light bulbs are coming on and people are like, maybe this is a broader issue. Unfortunately, we know as African Americans that that's not the case, but I do believe there's been some incremental success, like with this justice and policing legislation that just passed through the House. But we have to go over to the Senate, and we're going to have to fight really, really hard. I was able to go to Capitol Hill last year and introduce some of that same language. Just think, if they would have put that in place, maybe George would still be alive, and Breonna and so many others. And so we have to get organized. We have to organize money in order to have organized power, and we have to get to the polls in November, point blank.
I'm in such alignment with everything that was just shared. I think also the way that I'm experiencing what's happening right now is, it is still obviously a long road, but I think the shift that has happened for us in this moment versus when I was a little kid living in Watts during the Rodney King riots, or when we've experienced, you know, situations that were named over the last few years, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin. What's different about right now is we have all come into an understanding that this is our new normal. So as opposed to what I used to experience was you'd see it on the TV for a couple of weeks and then it disappears because the collective society didn't care. Now the collective society is being forced to witness and watch all of this, whether they want to or not. They're forced to have this in some way, in some degree, impact their day-to-day life, whether they want to or not. And I think that that's the piece that's going to make all the difference, because what we need is a collective shift of consciousness. And obviously that's not going to happen overnight. And obviously some people are going to spend the entirety of their lives trying to deny the experiences of Black people and trying to fight back with this, with all, everything they have to give. But they're not the full majority anymore. Now people, even if it's just to look like they're in alignment, they're going to be forced to level up in some capacity, and they're going to be forced to have this, or at least the knowledge of this, as a part of their day-to-day life in a way that had never happened before. And I think that that's a big win. Obviously, we have such a tremendous amount of work to do. We cannot take our foot off the gas for a second. Like now that we have gotten this momentum, it is about continuing to demand, continuing to push, continuing to force real changes on a systematic level. But I think one of the biggest barriers to our ability to heal as a country and our ability to move forward is that collective stagnation, that collective denial societally. And I think now that that's being challenged and being shifted and being shaken, I think we're going to see progress at a faster rate than we've been used to previously.
So there's many young ladies who are watching right now and who are asking a lot of questions. They are eager to follow in you all's footsteps for social change. How can they plug in? What can they do now to be a part of the movement for change using the platforms that they have? What are a couple of things that you would recommend for them to do?
I would recommend, first, and I'm always going to say this because I'm the wellness person, but connecting to self. I really can't stress enough, especially for our young Black women who have never really been allowed to take up full space in the world. We are coming into such a beautiful time of being able to be free, being able to be expressive, being able to stand in alignment with exactly who you are, who you feel called to be. So the biggest thing that I feel is take the time to really get to know, love, and accept yourself, to work through some of your healing that needs to be done. We all have it. We all have it. There are always these little crevices or pieces of us that can be loved a little deeper, because when you are able to really see yourself and love yourself, you are able to show up in the world as the highest version of you, as the most grounded, authentic version of you. And when you access those parts, your power it's unable to be caged. It's unable to be limited. So I think also too, it's educating yourself. If you feel called specifically to a realm of social justice or to a realm of activism or to any type of field, educate yourself, educate. It's not enough to just have strong opinions, really pour into yourself on all of the levels of wholeness, which are mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. To be a whole person, you have to tap into those 4 areas: mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. So I think for all the young women, I would just say, really identify those areas of your life, pour into them, and everything else starts falling into place.
I often get asked a lot about philanthropy, and my advice is don't. Just go study. It's not for everybody, but I think for some people it's like, you know what? Get through high school, get through college, and figure out where that path takes you, where then you are best positioned, right? For some people, their calling is going to be working as a lawyer in a community that needs lawyers, or working as a doctor in a community that doesn't have doctors, or becoming a public health official who's an epidemiologist who's unafraid. I mean, think of all the public health officials who've been fired or lost their jobs or been forced to quit just because what they're saying goes for science and against what some political leaders are spouting. So you don't have to necessarily by next week get your, philanthropy up and running. Sometimes the right answer is, you know what? Do nothing, study. Study. Your job is getting that degree and then get the next degree. I felt like I had a much more powerful voice when I had a job at a certain level, right? Then I could actually feel like, oh, I have some leverage. If I put my thumb on the scale of something, I can make stuff happen. And I was glad that my path started that way and didn't start with me as a new reporter doing the things that I do now, because I didn't really have the credibility and the power to do that. So sometimes I think it's okay to wait until you're in a position to really leverage the power, the full power that you have.
And also just realize that no role is too small. Figure out what you're comfortable doing and what you're good at. For me, being on the ground in the movement real time, we need people who are good at social media. We need people who are good at speaking to the media. We need people who are good at just being a body or making poster boards. And so there's a role for everyone. And so no role is too small. Just get in where you fit in and do what feels comfortable for you. Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. I mean, with this big rally we threw here in Tulsa this past weekend, it took the village. It took everyone coming together, from the philanthropic space to our media and communications teams, to just people being there to hand out T-shirts and masks and hand sanitizer. But we did it together. And I believe that when you figure out and self-assess what it is you want to do and how you want to get involved, just do it. Just do it.
Thank you. So, as we've talked today, we've talked a lot about elevating our voices, entering into the movement, caring for ourselves. Some of the girls, and one of the questions that has come up in this conversation is, how are we as Black women able to sustain our confidence and our self-care in a society where we oftentimes have to endure microaggressions? So I think about in spaces or in rooms that I've even sat in, that microaggressions can look like, oh, are you the leader of this organization? All the way to, you sound so intelligent, as though it wasn't expected. As Black women enter into these spaces and are growing in a society where racism can be very subtle, how have you countered microaggressions in your career, and what advice do you have to them on how to handle those?
I'm going to start with a story, if I may. So years ago, when I was a new journalist, I was working at WBZ TV in Boston, and I was a production assistant on the morning show. And the morning show, we did the show that started before the Today Show. So at 7 o'clock in the morning, when the Today Show would come on, my show would end. I'd grab all my stuff and I'd run to the morning meeting. The morning meeting is when you decide what the agenda for the local news station was going to be. So every day I would be probably about 5 minutes late, because our show would end right at the start of the Today Show. I'd have to gather my stuff, log out of my computer, make my way to the meeting. And there was a guy in this meeting, his name was John. And he used to say every single time I'd walk in, some little crack, oh, I guess we're running on colored people's time. Oh, I guess yes, right? Every single time. Some snotty little, snitty little comment every time. And the truth is, I ran down the hall for my last gig. I came into the office at 3 o'clock in the morning to make it to this meeting. I was so mad. I would plot my responses. I would stew about it all weekend. I was so pissed off all the time at this guy. I left that station eventually to go to NBC News to become an associate producer. I've never seen him again. And I've been in this business a long time, 31 years. And I look back and I think, what a waste of my time to be mad at some idiot who literally sucked joy and energy out of my day for some stupid little comment he was saying. It got under my skin. And you know who was the one who allowed that to happen? That was me. He was the perpetrator, but I was the one who took it in. And so my advice would be, the world is going to be full of little nasty people doing little nasty things. And if you respond to all of those things, you're going to lose your mind. I never saw this guy again, ever, literally. I know his name. I'm always tempted to name him because I'm like, I wonder where he is. I've never seen him again. I never even read or seen an article. He's nothing. And I just think, why did I allow myself to be derailed? Spend hours on my weekend when I wasn't working because of some jerk. Why? So my advice would be 99.99996% of that, let it go. Or it'll throw you off your game. It'll knock you off your path. And you'll spend so much time and energy dealing with this crap that's coming, you'll forget to do those things like grow your career, suck up to those people who can promote you. You have joy in taking advantage of great things the city you're in has to do, making friends with people who maybe you didn't think you'd be friends with. Like, there's lots of other interesting things to do that you lose focus on when you're plotting your revenge against John, because I did it. So there are a few things where you are going to have to say, all right, how am I going to respond to this one? What do I do with this one? I've actually found that humor usually works the best, because once you move out of humor, you actually are in like, I'm going to have to sue you mode, and that's never really good for your career. So you have to tread lightly on that one. A good example of that is when, I was at a dinner once, and my husband was working with these older guys, and I did the morning show. I was anchoring at CNN at the time, and one of these older guys probably was 70, and he said to my husband, and to me, he said, "Oh, so your husband lets you work?" And and my husband, without missing a beat, said, "Lets her work? She does a morning show. There are a whole bunch of afternoon hours free. I'm trying to see if she'll take a second job to, get it. The joke diffuses the whole thing, and we don't lose our minds and move on, because not every fight is worth having. Save your energy for the fights that are worth having would be my advice."
Yeah, and just to add to that, what you feed will grow. These are words of wisdom. What you starve will die. I've had to deal with the media, the comments of the people, the racism, the bigotry, and I just don't look at the comments at all on social media after something happens, after we're in the news, or it may take me out of here. And so I've learned to outlast my critics and just kill people with massive success. Just go be great. Do what you're called to do. Stay laser beam focused on your purpose and on the mission at hand. And I always say this: distractions are what you see when you take your eyes off the prize. Just stay focused on that goal. But what you feed will grow. What you starve will die. Outlast your critics. And I mean, it makes them upset and angry that you're not even giving them any attention. I mean, it kills them. So I've been able to do that throughout this journey.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You both gave the most amazing advice. And I wish I had heard that 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I stand so in alignment with everything just shared. And also, I think too, it's important to really assess the outcome that you want to have. So for the small microaggressions that are by miserable, broken people, it will be so much more satisfying to rise above it, because they do hate it. Right? Because they're so deeply unhappy with themselves. And so they're trying to manifest onto you how they feel inside about themselves. And so I would never give them the benefit of seeing me uncomfortable, because I know it would be so much more rewarding for us both if they could just stew as they watch my ascent continue. But I think in other moments, my dear friend Lovey says it perfectly: speak truth to power. If this is a situation where you are in a workplace, or a situation where someone has some type of leverage on you or is somehow placed above you, I think what's really amazing for all the young women coming into the working world now, it's different than it was when I was. There are things you can say. There are demands that can be made that I wasn't able to make because the work culture just wasn't that then. So I think now it is important to really gut check with yourself of, is this bothering my ego, or is this detrimental to my ability to do my job? Is this detrimental to my mental and emotional health? Do some assessment there. If it's just ego-based, forget them. You're going to continue to move forward in the world. If it's something deeper than that, if it's something a little more insidious than that, or a little more systemic than that, then I would speak truth to power, and don't be afraid, and document. We have to hold people accountable for their bad behavior now. We have to hold people accountable to be who they are in the light that they are in the shadows. So I think judge it, see where it really falls, but then also stand up for yourself when you need to.
And sometimes leaving is a really good option. I've worked in places where I thought my bosses didn't believe in me. And when I realized that, you could go and have a conversation, and sometimes people will be like, oh, yes, we care, but they don't. So sometimes it's, a much better use of your time is put that resume together, take all your good work, put a smile on your face, keep doing your job well, figure out who are those people who are going to give you a great reference, and go to some place where you're valued. That's it. not so hard sometimes.
Great. So we've got 3 minutes left. This went by so fast. I have soaked up all of your wisdom. I want to give you all a lightning round opportunity to share what are some closing words, what are some advice that you have for our next generation of leaders. And we'll start with you, Dr. Fretcher.
Again, thank you so much for having me. I'll just say this. I think we all had the same teachers growing up where they told us that the sky was the limit. And so I want to push back on that and tell the young girls that the sky is no longer the limit. It's just the beginning of another level. The sky is no longer the limit. It's just the beginning of another level. So stop fighting for your limitations. I don't have time. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And start fighting for the greatness that's within each and every one of you. Because if you keep fighting for your limitations, you're going to keep them. And so I'll just challenge you all to just go out there, get outside of your comfort zone, be great. That's where your greatness is. And just never give up. I know it's cliche-ish, but never, ever, ever give up, because you have what it takes to really affect change in this entire world and in the nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Debbie, we'll hop over to you and we'll close out with Soledad.
Thank you again so much for having me. It's such an honor to speak to all the young women watching. And I would just say, continue to invest in your spirit and know that your potential is limitless. And I'm not saying that in some kind of airy way of you can be all you can be. I'm saying that like really specifically, you can be whatever you want. But nothing that you accomplish will ever make you feel full unless you enjoy who you are as a person outside of a job title, outside of the role you play for your family, outside of any of the roles that we play in our lives. So I just want to really share, that if you work hard, obviously the success will come. If you're a good person, good people will come. But more important than that is really get to know yourself and love yourself. We all have two aspects inside of us, light and shadow. Both of them are worthy of your own love. So as you pour into yourself, as you continue to grow, heal, and transform yourself, everything else in your life will be that much better and be that much more impacted. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure and an honor to be on and with my panelists. I've been literally sitting here on my phone typing notes because I'm a list maker. So my first advice is make lists. Make lists, write things down. I have a list of what I'm doing today, a list of what I'm going to get done this week, a list of what I'm going to get done this month, a list of what I'm going to get done this summer, a list of what I'm going to get done this year, a list of where I want to be in 5 years, where I want to be in 10 years. What am I thinking about? Things I want to get done, projects I want to work on. I have lists, and my phone just holds all my lists and just interesting quotes. So list has really, really worked for me. So I love that you guys kicked this off with telling the young women, grab something to write on so you can take notes and make lists. And number two, my mom had a great saying. My mother passed away last year, and she was great. And she had a great saying, which was like, when something goes wrong, take 24 hours, sit in bed, eat Haagen-Dazs, cry, wallow in self-pity, feel bad for yourself. She said, but after that 24th hour, you get up and you start making your list, right? And you start thinking, okay, what's next? And that means you have to have a plan A, and if it fails, you move on to plan B. Oh, plan B didn't work out. Okay, well, what was plan C? Plan C didn't work out. Okay, well, what are we doing over here? Sometimes that's ditching people. Sometimes that's ditching jobs. Sometimes that's rethinking careers and strategies. 24 hours. Then you move on with a plan. That was the best advice I ever got.
Thank you all again so much. There's so many jewels that were captured in this conversation. I appreciate each and every one of you. And now I'm going to kick it over to Ashley, who's going to gear us up for the next portion of our event. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Carlesha, and thank you, ladies. I'm so grateful and I'm so full after hearing from you. Debbie and I speak sometimes, and Debbie, she shared with me that, there's so much empowerment and motivation on the internet, and we do the public a disservice if we just throw positive energy and excitement out to you if we're not giving you tools and resources on how to activate it. Once you're inspired, you really need kind of a call of action and a plan to execute. And I feel like you ladies gave us so much. I too was taking notes. You gave us so much, so many tangible tools to actually implement and activate immediately. So thank you for that. I respect and honor, and I'm so grateful for your time. I really believe that Black women will solve many of the world's greatest problems, but we cannot do that if we are not prioritizing self-care. So thank you also for giving us space and grace to take care of ourselves. The video you're about to see showcases Christina, who was a participant in the 2013 travel seminar. We are about to learn more about Women Empowering Nations, to look at the impact the experience had on her life and where she is now. Let's watch the video together.
Hi, my name is Christina. When watching the World They Knew video, I was absolutely shocked to see how shy I was. Like, that was ridiculous. It's just such a different contrast to how I am today. The most memorable thing from the trip of 2013 was the If You Really Knew Me activity that we did, because it was the most difficult thing for me to do.
No, sure. You have something. We're not skipping anybody. Yes or no?
If you really knew me, I think it's helped me in the long run, because it's helped me share my experiences with other young women even today, as I meet new people that might be going through whatever they might be going through. Being able to share my experiences through middle school all the way through high school, how those trials and tribulations have built me and built my character, and how that should push other young women to continue. Now that I'm older, I would tell my younger self, own your voice.
So tell me about the things that you put on your vision board and what has happened since then.
I put some title words that I believe confidence, every African American woman should have confidence in themselves.
When I watched my vision board, I was saying confidence, but like now looking back, I didn't hear that confidence. I think owning your voice is such an imperative part of a young woman. It helps you in life.
I'm able to speak more about myself, and I'm very proud of that.
Yes, I was proud of you. You came here to grow.
I have grown in so many different ways.
You came here to connect.
I never knew that they actually looked up to me, and they said, you go through a lot of stuff at home, and for you to do the things you do, that's very, very strong.
I keep in touch with the young women that I met in Gambia, still through Facebook.
You came here to have these experiences. You came here to overcome your challenges, and I really feel proud of you.
That was the biggest journey for me, was finding out who I was, finding about my ancestry, finding about where I come from.
Kunta Kinte, I never thought I would get to meet his family.
Other cultures, and I would just say that to any young woman watching the video. Where am I in life? I'm currently a rising senior at Xavier University of Louisiana. I am a part-time barista at Starbucks. I've had a slew of small-time jobs. I just want anyone to know that getting through college is definitely tough, especially money-wise. But that fight, long as you fight, you work those late hours, study late, it all pays off. My fight has been through the roof. I am a determined young African-American woman who is determined to get that undergraduate degree.